Alright, this video is on coterminal angles, but it's in radians. If you want to see coterminal angles done in degrees, just check out my video on coterminal angles in degrees. But this one's going to be in radians, the other kind of measure when dealing with angles. So coterminal angles, again, are two or more angles that share the same terminal side. So to give kind of an example of that, here you go, pi fourths and negative 7 pi fourths. And so I'm going to draw both of them for you just so that you can see that they end in the same spot. So here's pi fourths. I'm going to draw my initial side. There it is. And then pi fourths is just halfway in the first quadrant. And so here is pi fourths. 7 pi, or negative 7 pi fourths, excuse me. Right? Negative means here's my initial side. Negative means we're going to do clockwise. And so here's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and then notice 7/4. And so 7/4, though we're going this direction, that is where it would end up. And so there's negative 7 pi fourths. So they have the same terminal side. They're different angles, but they end in the same spot. And so that is coterminal angles in radians. And so if you think about, okay, what's the relationship once again? How could I go about finding one from the other? Let's just take a look at pi fourths. If you look at pi fourths with me and say, okay, well, what if I started at pi fourths here? What if I started there and then I went a full revolution in the other direction? Well, if I started there and went a full revolution in the other direction, I would have to subtract 2 pi. Now, since they're fractions, we have to use good fraction work. We're going to have to get a common denominator, so I'm going to multiply by 4. And so I'll have pi fourths minus 8 pi fourths. Keep the denominator the same. 1 pi minus 8 pi is negative 7 pi fourths. And so you can add or subtract full revolutions in order to get coterminal angles. Just remember that in radians, a full revolution is 2 pi. So it would need to look like this. It would have to be the angle first, and then you have to go plus or minus full revolutions. And so plus or minus 2 pi or 4 pi or 6 pi or 8 pi, any even number with pi would achieve that process. So here you go. We're just going to do these two problems and call it a video. We're going to find one positive and one negative coterminal angle for the given angle. So the first angle is 8 pi fifths. So once again, remember the kind of way you want to do this is you want to do the angle, then plus or minus full revolutions. So we're going to write 8 pi fifths, and we're actually just going to write plus or minus 2 pi. And so I'm going to get a common denominator, times 5, times 5. So what do we have? 8 pi fifths plus or minus 10 pi fifths. And now I'm just going to do it one at a time. 8 pi plus 10 pi would be 18 pi fifths. So there's my positive coterminal angle. And then 8 pi minus 10 pi would be negative 2 pi fifths. And that would be my negative coterminal angle. And you might be saying, well, where are these angles? Okay, well, we're saying that 8 pi fifths, 18 pi fifths, and negative 2 pi fifths, we're saying they all end in the same spot. And if they all end in the same spot, that spot is probably the fourth quadrant, seeing as negative 2 pi fifths would be in the fourth quadrant, right? And so that's where we would find ourselves. Okay, so there are different angles that all end in the same spot. Let's do one more. So you have now negative 10 pi thirds. So if you think about negative 10 pi thirds, say to yourself, okay, that negative number is actually, if I did negative 10 divided by 3, that'd be 3 1/3. And so I say to myself, okay, that's bigger than 2, right, if I'm not using the negative. And so I'm probably just going to add 2 pi. And if I add 2 pi, and I'm going to get a common denominator, multiply by 3, multiply by 3, negative 10 pi over 3 plus 6 pi over 3. Then I'm going to have negative 4 pi thirds. And so with negative 4 pi thirds, I then end up with a negative coterminal angle, and I can add another 6 pi thirds and find myself the positive, which would be 2 pi thirds. So I would say negative 4 pi thirds is my negative coterminal angle, and 2 pi thirds is my positive coterminal angle. And there could be my 2 coterminal angles that I was looking for. Once again, they're different angles, but they end in the same spot. Can you guess what that spot is? I'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. All the terminal sides should be at the same spot in the second quadrant. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. Other than that, that's how you find a coterminal angle. You just add or subtract 2 pi and just make sure you get a common denominator. All right. Have a great day.